Hi, and welcome to Noble Character Crafts. My name is Amy, and I'm coming to you from eastern Nebraska, where I live with my husband and our 5 children. Today is Tuesday, January 25th, 2022. A huge welcome to any new or returning viewers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you really enjoy this episode. This is a channel all about my crafty life, and today I have knitting and crocheting to share with you all. You can find me online on Instagram and Etsy at Noble Character Crafts, and you can get in contact with me through my email at noblecharactercrafts@yahoo.com. I will have links to all of the places that you can find me in the description box below, as well as the show notes for this episode. I am hosting a year-long make-along on Instagram again this year. It is called the Make 9 2022 Mal, and that is for you to join in the Make 9 Challenge, where you choose 9 projects that you would like to make this year, make a board showing those 9 projects that you would like to make, and then anytime that you post a picture on Instagram with your progress or any finished objects from your board, include the hashtag Make 9 2022 Mal, and you will be entered to win a prize that I will be drawing periodically throughout the year. So please don't hesitate to join in if you haven't already. I would love to have you join in if you haven't, and to see the projects that you would like to work on this year. There is no requirement to finish anything from your board. You don't have, it's not to be a stressful make along. It's just for fun. So just join in and share what you would like to make. Whips are allowed and any crafts are allowed as well. So please feel free to continue to join in throughout the year. You can join in at any time. Please let me know if you have any questions, but there are detailed description notes about this make along in the description box below. So check those out if you want to find out some more information about it or how to make a board for yourself. You can also get in contact with me, and I'll be glad to help you in making a board if you are having difficulty figuring out how to do that. I'm glad to help you out. So don't hesitate to contact me if you need any assistance with that. Today I am wearing a cardigan that I knit last year. I believe I finished it in June last year. So I finished it as it was getting hot, and so I never really got a chance to wear it until it cooled off this last fall, but I am just enjoying it so much. So I based this pattern off of the Gigi Cardigan by Devin Ventry of Knitty McPurly. I made quite a few modifications. I will link to the episode where I talked about this so that you can get some more details on it if you're interested in knowing how I went about doing this. I ended up steeking this cardigan, and I also have a video showing how I steeked this cardigan and showing in general how to steek a cardigan, at least how I do it. So I'll link to that as well. I used Knit Picks Wool of the Andes in 6 different colorways, I believe. But again, you can find more details about that in the videos I'll link below if you're interested. I have a few finished objects to share with you all today. The first one is this Afghan that I made for my stepsister. And last time on the last episode, I showed that I was near the finish line. I just had a few more of these strips to finish up and piece together. So I was able to finish this up in just a few days after I recorded my last episode. I'm going to stand up in a little bit so you can see it a little bit better, but I just want to give you the details. I used this book that I got at my local thrift shop. It's called A Year of Afghans, 1997, and it's a publication by Leisure Arts. And the pattern that I used is called Rosy Trellis. And I just thought it was so beautiful. My stepmom asked me to make an Afghan for my stepsister, and she said that she really likes Victorian style decorating, and so I thought that that pattern just looked kind of a Victorian style from what, I don't know, when I looked at it, I just thought it looked kind of Victorian. I'm not a historian or anything, so I don't really know if it is, but I just thought it looked beautiful, and I thought that she would like it. And she said that she wanted it in these colors. Well, she said basically burgundy and like a country blue, but I found these colors and I thought that they would work really well. All the yarn that I used is Red Heart Super Saver. The lightest color here is called Soft White. And then I used, the tan color is called Buff. And then I used two different colorways that are in their ombre line. The pinkish burgundy color, it fades from the, from this to this lightest pink, is called Anemone. And then the blue color is called True Blue. So again, that one fades from this really light blue to the dark blue color. But I just thought that was really cool how it had that fade, and I thought it would be a neat effect in this pattern. This was such a joy to crochet. It was just the most, I just love this stitch and how that worked out. I thought it was so cool. So this was constructed in strips. There are a total of 9 strips, and you start with the pinkish burgundy color, making a long strip, and then you work around that with the tan, and then you go around that with the blue, and again around with the soft white color. And then I modified the pattern in that I joined these strips together as I crocheted along, instead of making all 9 strips separately and then piecing them together in the end. I wanted to join as I went along because I just think that is simpler. The best, or my favorite feature of this pattern, are these end pieces. The detail along the end here, I just think is so, this detail is so beautiful. I think that's made using front post treble crochets basically for the most part, but I just think it's so beautiful. This is all worsted weight yarn, 100% acrylic, so it'll be really easy for her to care for. And I used an H5mm hook. And I think I'll go ahead and stand up so you can see it better. So here you can kind of get an idea of the width of it, I think. It's kind of hard to show, but it's a really good size for a throw. Hopefully you can get an idea of what that looks like. It's kind of hard to show, but I just think it's really pretty, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. Here it is, held horizontally. Maybe that gives you a better idea of how it looks as well. It's kind of difficult to show it off in full, but hopefully you get a general idea of how it looks. It's really got a nice thickness and weight to it. I just love the texture that this pattern made. And I really hope that my stepsister will enjoy it. I think it's so pretty. I just steam blocked it with my iron, which is typically what I do with anything I make with acrylic especially. I usually just give it a steam, run my iron over it on the steam setting, really close to it, like about an inch away from the fabric. And it really just helps the edges to lay a little bit better. And this edge does still kind of tend to curl a little bit, but I think it'll be fine. I don't think it's too much of a bother. But yeah, I think it'll be a really nice throw for her to have in her home, and I hope that she really loves it. It was such a joy to make. I really enjoyed this pattern. It would be definitely one that I would consider going back to again and making again, because it was such a joy to make. So there is my first finished object. My next finished object are these adorable socks that I finished up. I'm so pleased with how they turned out. These are the little Chex socks by Summer Lee Design Co. And I really love how they turned out. I'm so excited about them. These are knit from the top down. I made the large size, and it has a 1x1 twisted ribbing for just about an inch. And for the ribbing, I used a 00 1.75mm because the large size has 72 stitches, which is, I typically lately have been making my socks with only 60 stitches, so I didn't want the ribbing to be too loose. So that's why I went down to a 00. But then for the main sock, since it's done in color work, and I typically knit color work pretty tightly, I used, well, the recommended needles, which are US 2.75mm for the body or the leg of the sock. And the yarn that I used is the black and the dark red are both my own hand-dyed yarns. on a fingering weight 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon base. And then the bright red is Regia 4-ply in the Castaway color, which is also a 75-25, I'm pretty sure. I just followed the pattern. I probably knit a little bit longer of a leg, but she probably just says in the pattern knit to the length that you want. But I typically like a longer leg than an average person, I think, maybe a little bit longer. Anyway, I did substitute a different heel. So she has an afterthought heel in her pattern, but I haven't had much luck with afterthought heels in the past, except for this heel that I've discovered, which is the Umbrella heel by Kay Jones. And I will link to the pattern for her umbrella socks, which has the umbrella heel included in there. So it's another afterthought heel that is just a bit of a different construction than what I've done before, and it just gives a little bit more room throughout the heel, which is great for me because I have a high instep, and so that really just fits me a lot better. So I'm super pleased with how that turned out. For the heels and the toes, I also went down to a US 0 2mm just to get that tighter gauge, since I was only using, I wasn't doing color work obviously, and so I wanted my gauge to be tighter through the stitches in the heels and the toes. Oh, I think they're so much fun. I'm just so pleased with how they turned out. I think they're so cute. This pattern was super fun, and I would definitely love to make these also again in different colors. It would be so much fun to make these in other gingham style, colors. I think that'd be super fun. I'm so happy with those though. My next finished object are these gorgeous socks, which are the Advent Mystery Knitalong socks, a beautiful pattern by Anna of Anna Knitter. And I knit these for my mother-in-law, hoping to make them as a Christmas gift for her this last Christmas, but I did not meet that deadline. So I quickly abandoned the idea. Well, no, I didn't give up. Like I mentioned on the last episode, I didn't give up making these until the 23rd of December. I realized that it was not going to be possible to finish these in time for Christmas, but I wanted to continue working on them anyway, and I will just save them until next Christmas, I think, or maybe her birthday or something like that. So this was such a fun pattern to knit. Starts at the cuff as well, knit cuff down with another 1x1 twisted ribbing. You know what? I don't think that is a twisted ribbing. That's a 1x1 ribbing. It's just regular. I don't think that's twisted. Anyway, this is a twisted ribbing, and it's 20 rounds on the ribbing. So as you can see, there's these beautiful textured sections throughout the sock, and it was so much fun to work those up, and it just makes the pattern so interesting because you're always switching the different pattern and texture throughout the sock. It has a heel flap and gusset for the heel, or slip stitch heel flap, I should say. And then the beautiful textures throughout the sock are just so much fun. The yarn that I used for this is, again, my own hand-dyed yarn in my Vineyard colorway. I do not sell my hand-dyed yarn anymore, but this is one of the colors that I used to dye and sell. Now, my mother-in-law has, I believe, she has a little bit larger foot than me. I wear a 9.5, and I believe she wears a 10.5 maybe. So I just looked up online the difference between a 9.5, and I even went up to look at a size 11 women's to see the difference, and there was only a 1/2 inch difference between a 9.5 and an 11 inch, or an 11, and there's only a 1/2 inch difference in that shoe size. So I just knit these for a little bit longer than I knit socks for myself. And I just figured that, with the stretch that is given throughout knitted socks, I thought I'm hoping that they'll fit her. But the problem that I had was that the pattern actually ended right here. And I still needed a lot of length before I was ready to start the toe. So I decided to add in another section of another texture pattern. I'm going to turn this this way so you can see a little bit better. So again, I referred, last time I shared this knitting dictionary that I got from my friend Tina. I had used the stitches, some of the stitches that I found in this book for the leg warmers that I made for my daughter. And I referred back to this book again to add in a stitch pattern for that last section. So I used number 203, which is the caterpillar stitch horizontal for this last section in the toe, or near the toe. And I thought that that looked cool and kind of went along with, I don't know, I thought it looked nice with the other stitches throughout this sock. But it was fun to be able to add another stitch into this pattern. I had thought I could have also, you know, just repeated one of the stitches from the leg as well, but I just thought it'd be fun to add in one extra different type of stitch to the pattern. I knit these on US 1 2.25 millimeter needles, and I cast on 60 stitches for these. I am really happy with how they turned out though. I hope that she will enjoy them. They're really pretty, aren't they? I just love that. I love the pattern so much. It's so beautiful. I finished one more pair of socks, which are these beautiful sparkly socks. I received this yarn from Emma of Potter and Bloom in our Christmas Advent swap. She sent me this beautiful yarn from West Yorkshire Spinners in the Signature Sparkle 4-ply in the Vintage Tinsel colorway. It is 75% wool, 23% nylon, and 2% polyester. And I absolutely love how these knit up. Last time I recorded a video, I was right here where this cute little stitch marker is, or progress keeper is. Emma also gifted me that in our swap. So I had said I was about ready to start the heel, and I wasn't sure which kind of a heel I was going to put into these socks, but I did end up going with the umbrella heel again by Kay Jones for these. And I really love, I'm really glad that I did that. However, I discovered that, well, let me back up. Okay, first I started off with 60 stitches. I did a 2x1 ribbing for, I just did a color, I just went until I had a full color stripe repeat before I started doing plain stockinette. I knit these on US 0 2mm needles. This is Knit Picks Stroll in Everglade Heather. So I decided that I wanted to use that colorway for the heels, and I just wanted to put it right after that blue stripe so it would be evenly placed between the green and the stripes. Anyway, I had gotten to this blue stripe, and I still had not decided if I wanted to do a slip stitch heel flap and gusset decrease, or if I wanted to do an afterthought heel. And I tried them on when they were at that point, and the leg was going to be way too long. So I decided to do the afterthought heel, but what I discovered was that once I put in that afterthought heel, that really shortened the leg. I don't know if that makes sense, but just putting in this afterthought heel pulls down the leg. If you have a heel flap and gusset, maybe I can kind of show on these. I don't know, it just kind of, I don't know if that makes sense, but once I had put in that afterthought heel, I just felt like the leg really kind of shortened quite a bit more than what I was expecting it to. Does that make sense? So anyway, I kind of wish, they're great and I will love wearing them, but I kind of wish that I would have put the afterthought heel in right here so that the leg could have been a little bit longer, because these are quite a bit shorter than what I would normally knit for myself, but they'll be fine. I'll still love wearing them. I included the slip stitch detail that I normally do on my socks on the ball of the foot, just because I typically wear holes in the ball of my foot the fastest. That is the place where I get holes in my socks most quickly. And so my hope is that that will prevent me from getting holes in that part of my sock. And I want to give you a little bit of an update on that, because I have had a few people ask if that is helpful or not. So I want to give a little bit of an update on that in just a minute. Anyway, I included the knit picks on the toe as well, and just did a rounded toe. And I'm really, really happy with how these turned out. They're so cute, I think. So, as an update on my slip stitch section on the ball of my foot, I have a few pairs of socks that are not in the prettiest of condition because they were finished back in 2020. That is when I started adding the slip stitch to the ball of my foot in my socks. This is the last pair of socks that I made without the slip stitch detail on the ball of my foot. These are the Rainbow Connection socks by Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady. And I knit these using Knit Picks Felici in the Steamer Trunk colorway, and then the main color is my own hand-dyed yarn. Anyway, so this is the last pair of socks that I've made without that slip stitch detail. And I'll show you the ball of my foot. And you can see that the stitches are really thinning out right there on the ball of my foot. You can just see that the stitches are really thinning out right in through here. And that's the problem that I typically have. This is the next pair of socks that I made after I finished those Rainbow Connection socks. This is another pattern by Kay of Crazy Sock Lady Designs, and this is the Diamond Back Socks pattern. And I knit these out of a sock blank by hand dyed by Kate, and it was called Abi, A-B-I was the colorway name. So this was the first pair of socks that I added that slip stitch detail to the ball of the foot, and so I'll just show you how they're looking. So there's not any wear that I can see in the ball of that foot. It looks a lot better. And you know, I think I pretty much wear these socks about the same. I try to rotate my socks pretty evenly. They were both finished in the summer. The socks I just showed you were finished in May of 2020, and these were finished in June of 2020. So the lifespan is very similar, and I think that it is effective, this slip stitch detail to the ball of my foot. This one looks a lot better, doesn't it? So I'm going to continue doing that, adding that into the socks that I make. I think it's pretty effective, and I'm happy with how they're holding up a lot better than socks without that slip stitch detail. Now, I didn't add that slip stitch detail to the little Chex socks just because they were color work, and so they're double thick anyway, and so I'm hoping that that will be enough to, give them a little bit more sturdiness. Okay, I have several more dishcloths that I finished since the last time I recorded. Last time I was working on this dishcloth, striping these two colors together. I used the free pattern online called Grandmother's Favorite Dishcloth, which I will link in the description box below. It does not have a designer linked with it. It's just a free pattern that you can find online. And I was showing you that I was making this dishcloth to match a dishcloth, kind of match a dishcloth that I had made quite a while ago, which is this one. And I was just using up some scraps when I made this one, but it was just a loner dishcloth, and I like to give my dishcloths as sets of 3. And so I wanted to make a couple more dishcloths to coordinate with this one. So I striped the mint and white colors. These are both Knit Picks Dishy yarn, which is worsted weight 100% cotton yarn, and just stripe those together and copied the one corner all in the solid white color. And then I also made one with the silver colorway striped with the mint. I knit these on US 6 4mm needles, and I modify the pattern in that I increase up to 52 stitches before I start decreasing. The pattern calls for you to go only to 44 stitches before you decrease, but it also calls for you to use a larger needle. I believe it calls for a US 8 5mm needle, and I go down in needle size, so I increase my stitches, I guess, just to make up for that difference. I just like the size of this dishcloth. So this will be a set of 3 now. And then I also made just a plain mint colored one. And I used up the rest of my mint and then ran out. So I just striped in, before I got to the end, I started striping in this blue color, which is a Lion brand kitchen cotton in the blue ice colorway. Then I made a solid gray one, or silver. This is called silver. And I made a solid white one. Now I got these done, and then I have for a long time really noticed that this is where you start this dishcloth. Maybe I'll not use this white because it's blown out so much, but okay, you start the dishcloth here and you increase. And then once you start decreasing, you start doing, on this pattern, you do knit 2 together stitches. And you can just see that the first half, the edges are nice and neat and tidy. And then on the decreased stitches, they're so loosey-goosey and sloppy looking. Can you see the difference here? I think it's quite dramatic to me, but these edges are beautiful. These edges are not so beautiful. And it's just the difference of you're increasing here and then you start decreasing. And I don't really understand why it's so loose. I've tried to do my knit 2 together stitches as tight as I can, and I haven't had much success. So I went online and was just searching for a different dishcloth pattern that maybe would use different stitches and would look a little bit tidier. But I still wanted it to be super simple. I didn't want to include any like texture, which of course is beautiful, but I just didn't, I wanted to continue to knit really simple dishcloths. I came across this pattern, which is another free pattern online, and it's called the Classic Easy Knit Dishcloth by Carolyn Stanton. And it's just so much neater, isn't it? All of the 4 sides are matching, and I'm just so pleased with it. Isn't it? I mean, I just think that it's remarkable, the difference. You can just see these huge open yarn over stitches on this one, and this just doesn't have it. Now this one, the main difference, one of the main differences I think, is that it uses slip slip SSK stitches, slip slip knit stitches, instead of knit 2 together stitches for the decreases. And I really think that makes a difference, I guess. I don't really understand why, but it works, and I really am so happy with the results of it. The color I used here is Peaches and Cream in the Good Earth colorway. This pattern actually calls for US 6 4mm needles, so I kept with those, of course. And this pattern calls for you to increase to 60 stitches. I did do that for this one, and I think it's too big. I don't know, I'm just used to this smaller size, and I think this is a bit more of a manageable size for a dishcloth, I think. I don't know. This one's okay too, but I just think it's a bit too big. It used, the size I normally make only takes 34 grams of yarn, and this one took 54 grams of yarn, which is remarkable that it took 20 more grams just by increasing by only 8 stitches more. But anyway, I'm so happy with this pattern. I just think it's so effective, but I did want to go down to the 52 stitches that I normally have been knitting my dishcloths in. So I just finished up this one in the same pattern. And this is Knit Picks Dishy in the Dandelion Patch colorway. So that's I only increased to 52 stitches for this one. And I think I'll continue with that one, that size. And again, this only used 34 grams of yarn. So anyway, super happy with that. I do have one more on the go, which is being held in this Me Made bag. And it is another Knit Picks Dishy in the jalapeno colorway. I'm in the middle of my first decrease row. So it's halfway done. Okay, my next finished object is this potholder. And I crocheted this up as a sample of the next Afghan that I'm going to be making. As I mentioned on my last episode, my stepmom asked me to make another Afghan for one of her friends. And so I was just testing out this pattern to see how I liked it, and I do like it. I think it was so much fun to make, and I think it's beautiful. It also came from this same book, A Year of Afghans, 1997. It is called The Old Time Charm. So there you can get an idea of how that looks. So I just worked up this square, and then I just made up my own border. I can put my notes down below of how I did that border if you're interested. But I just wanted to, try one square, and then I thought it'd be fun to add a pretty border so it can be a pot holder. And maybe I'll include that with a set of dishcloths to gift to somebody. I think it's so pretty. It would just make a pretty, even a wall hanging in the kitchen, wouldn't it? So the colors I used for this were just leftovers from the Afghan that I finished. So again, it's the Red Heart Super Saver in Soft White and True Blue. And the colors, I've got the yarn. I haven't started this blanket yet, but I may start it soon. I want to try to focus on my whip still, like I mentioned on my last episode. I want to continue to work on those and finish up some more projects probably before I start this, but I may start it pretty soon. But I did get all of the yarn that I need. She wants it in sage green and cream. And so I got this from Hobby Lobby. I love this yarn in the light sage colorway and in ivory. They only had 3 of this light sage color in stock, however, so I needed more of this than what they had in stock. So I also got, I think, 3 or 4 of this color, which is called Sage Advice. So I'm not sure how I'm going to work these colors into the blanket. Well, my two choices that I'm trying to decide upon are to just alternate these two, like do one square with these 2 colors together, and then the next square I'll do these 2 colors together. Or I thought it might be fun, since throughout this square there are 1, 2, 3 sections of the green color. In this case, instead of blue, I'll be using green where the blue is. I thought maybe it would be kind of fun to alternate and just mix and match all of these sage colors throughout the pattern. So, kind of do one that is mixed, do one that's solid, and kind of mix and match. I don't know. I haven't decided yet how I'll work these into the blanket, but I think it'll be really pretty with these colors in this pattern. Those are all of my finished objects. I also am planning to make another Afghan. Probably I'll do, I'm not 100% sure yet, but I'm pretty sure I'll do the one I just showed you first, and then I'll do this next one. And this is going to be an Afghan for my niece who got married last year. She eloped last year, and so we didn't, of course, know that she was going to be getting married and couldn't plan for a wedding gift. And I thought it would be really nice to make her and her husband an Afghan as a belated wedding gift. And my niece really loves sunflowers. In fact, they had a party for like a belated wedding party, and it was decorated all in sunflowers, and she's always loved sunflowers. So I came across this pattern, which is the Crocodile Stitch Sunflower Square, and it is by Caitlin's Contagious Creations. And it's just a square. That's what the pattern is. It is a paid-for pattern. And here is the square that I have worked up. So I've only done this one, and I'm putting this project, I'm not going to be working on this project right away, but I just wanted to see how this square would work up. And I think it's so cool. I love it so much. It was really, really fun to make. However, the pattern isn't perfect. So there are, I believe, unless I'm just misreading it, but I think there are a few mistakes in the pattern, and it took me, I also made some mistakes while I was crocheting this up. I had skipped a stitch on this last round using the brown color, and so then I was off. I had one less petal for each of these rounds, and then I didn't notice that I was off until I got to the gray color, and my corners weren't working up right, and so I had to rip back all the way to the brown and redo it. Anyway, so I'm pretty sure that there's a few mistakes in the pattern. I haven't contacted the designer yet. I should probably do that and just let her know what problems I came across. But I'm always a little bit hesitant to do that because I think it may very well be that I just misread it or I'm misunderstanding it. Anyway, but I might contact her just to see if she agrees with what I have come across. But I was able to work it out anyway. So I really wanted to work up this one square, not only just because I love working up new patterns and seeing how they'll turn out, but I also have changed the yarn for this, and I ordered all of this yarn off of Knit Picks, and I wasn't 100% sure if I was ordering the right amount of yarn. Since this is just a square pattern, it's not a blanket pattern. I didn't have a great idea of how much yarn I would need to make a whole blanket. And the original pattern calls for you to use worsted weight yarn. This yarn was on clearance on the Knit Picks website, and it is a bulky weight yarn. So it is Mighty Stitch Bulky Weight, which is 80% acrylic and 20% superwash wool. And it comes in 100 gram skeins, 136 yards per skein. The colorways I used are Canary. The brown is called Bark, and this is Silver. And I just wanted to see if I wanted to get a general idea if how much yarn I was going to need in order to make this whole blanket. So it used a lot of yarn. The brown center took 20 grams. The Canary colorway used up 60 grams, so over half of the one skein just to do one square. And the Silver only took 38 grams. I decided that I'm just going to, this measures 12 inches right now, and I've decided that I'm going to just add on to this square to make it a total of 16 inches square. And then I'm going to make the blanket 3 squares by 4 squares. And I think that'll make a really nice size, and then I'll plan on adding a border in the silver color as well. I did go up to a larger hook. I used a J hook, 6 millimeter. I believe the original pattern calls for you to use an H 5 millimeter with the worsted weight yarn. And I'm happy with how the gauge of this. I think it's going to be a nice gauge. Since it's bulky weight, I don't think it needs to be a really tight gauge. I think it's okay that it has a little bit of airiness to it. And also that flower is so, bulky with all of the petals there. I think it really will add to it, to the weight of the blanket. So I think it's okay that it's a bit looser throughout the edging. So anyway, I'm really excited about this pattern and super excited to work on it eventually, but it will probably be put on hold for a while. The next work in progress that I wanted to give you an update on is my Excavation Blanket, which is another free pattern that I have been working on for several years. I started this back in 2017, and I have been adding the leftover yarn from any fingering weight project that I have finished ever since 2017. If I have any leftovers from any fingering weight project, then I add a stripe of color from that project into this blanket. So I will stand up and show you this one too, so that you can get an idea of what it looks like, although I haven't put it on a very long cord right now, so it might not show very easily. But last time I showed this off on an episode, oh, by the way, this pattern is by Jana Pihota. And last time I showed this off, I was there where that progress keeper is marking. And so I've added a good few inches to the blankets since then. And the colors that I've added in here are the last of the projects that I finished in 2020. So actually this progress keeper right here is marking the beginning of 2020, and these are all of the colors that I have had left over from the projects that I made last year. I am using, let's see, I am modifying this pattern a little bit in that I followed the pattern for the first half of this blanket using US 2.75 millimeter needles. And the way that this pattern is made is I'll start way down here where I started. I'll show you. You start with a tail of yarn, and then you just do an increase stitch on either side, going both one way and then back again. You increase on each row, and you do 2 rows per color, and then you leave another tail when you're all done with that color so that you don't have to weave in any ends, which is really nice. So you continue to increase until you get to the length or the size that you want it to, so it's at the width that you want it. And then the pattern calls for you to then work the second half on the opposite side so that one half of your blanket shows the right side and one half of your blanket shows the wrong side. But I wanted my blanket to be all one side as the right side and one side as the wrong side. I didn't want it to be half and half. And so I've decided to modify the pattern by, on the first half, you're doing all garter stitch, so knitting everything. And now on the second half of this blanket, I am purling everything. So all of my rows are purled at this point, and I've just been decreasing on every row. So I'll go ahead and stand up so you can see it a little bit better. So there is the beginning half, and I don't know if you can really tell how it's looking since it's bunched up a bit, but here is the one side where I have been decreasing. So it's really quite hard to tell in this way, but you get a general idea that it's pretty big already. I just love it so much. I think the pattern is so cool, the way that it works up with all these stripes. It looks really neat, doesn't it? All of those progress keepers are marking the different years. So this one down here is marking the end of 2017, and then I've got 2018, 2019, and kind of hard to see, but there's that 2020 marker. So yeah, oh, I think it's so cool. I just love this pattern so much. It's so much fun. I've already decided that whenever I finish this blanket, I want to make another one, I'm pretty sure. I forgot to mention that when I started purling, I did go down in my needle size because I purl a little bit looser than I knit, and so I am using a US 2.25 millimeter needle for my purl stitches. So it's going really well, and I'm enjoying it so much, and I have quite a few yarns that I need to add to this now from the projects that I finished this year already. So I'm excited to add some more color stripes to this. It's just, you know, obviously a mindless project, and I really don't mind purling. So I just love sitting down and adding to this blanket. It's really a lot of fun. And now, of course, my rows are getting shorter and shorter every time, so it's not too bad. I love it. I highly recommend this pattern. It's just so much fun. And you wouldn't have to do fingering weight. You could use any weight of yarn, just, you know, change your needle size accordingly. And it would be great for any kind of scraps and any weight of yarn. Okay. My next work in progress is being held in this beautiful bag that was gifted to me by a viewer of the podcast. It was made by Longview Creations, and it's an Anne of Green Gables themed bag. And in here is the project that I am making using the Advent mini skein swap that Emma of Potter and Bloom sent to me. And I am making a turtleneck sweater. So I am loosely following the pattern by Diana Walla for her Stoneham poncho, which is a pattern that I made several years ago. And I had modified that pattern originally to add sleeves to the poncho pattern to make it into a sweater. And I love the way that sweater fits me. And so I'm using the numbers. I use the numbers for the cast on stitches and the increases for the yoke for this pattern. But that's the only thing that I'm really following is her stitch numbers for casting on the neckline and the increases throughout the yoke. I am using a Bear yarn, which is fingering weight, 100% non-superwash fine merino wool, and I'm holding it double to make a DK weight. There are 2 sizes in the Stoneham poncho pattern, and I'm using the small size for the numbers that I cast on. I did a 1x1 ribbing for 7 inches. I used a US 3.25 millimeter for that neckline or that turtleneck. And then for the body, I went up to a US 5 3.75 millimeter needle. And again, I'm holding the fingering weight double. So the yarn that Emma sent to me is all fingering weight yarn, and I just held it double throughout and striped in 1 row of each color and then alternated a row or a stripe of the Bear yarn. And I have now added in all of the colors that she sent to me. So there are now 24 stripes of this beautiful faded, it's kind of a rainbow fade here. I just think it's so cool. I love how she faded these colors together. I think it looks awesome. I'm so pleased with it. I just split for the sleeves as well on this, so I'm super excited about that. So after I finished those stripes, I did 7 rounds with the Bear yarn before I was ready to split for the sleeves. And so now I am just going to be knitting plain stockinette for the body until it's the length that I want it, and it's going to be a super easy project to work on now. Well, it has been from the beginning. It really hasn't been a difficult project yet. I just had put it aside for a while, so I hadn't made a lot of progress on it. But here is a progress keeper that Emma sent to me that's marking where I was last time I showed it off. I still had a few color stripes to add in, and so I did that. Oh, I just think it's so cool. It's going to look so neat. I really would like to finish this up before it warms up. Since it's a turtleneck, obviously I want to be able to wear it while it's still cold outside, but I don't know, we'll see if I can stay focused on it. I will try, but I'll probably finish it just as it's warming up or something, but that's okay. My next project is being held in this beautiful bag that Emma also sent to me in our swap. This is by Gibby Roo Sews. Sure I get that right? Yes, Gibby Roo Sews, and these are the 24 Days Socks pattern, also by Emma of Potter and Bloom. And I have, the main color that I'm using for these socks is Knit Pick Stroll in the Midnight Heather colorway, which is a 75-25 fingering weight sock yarn. And for these, I am using the colors that most of the colors that I sent to Emma for her Advent swap. So the yarn that I sent to her, the leftovers that I had from those colors, I'm using to stripe into these socks. But I've decided to modify this pattern a little bit. I have added in all of the colors that I sent to her that I had left over. There were a few that I did not have enough left over for myself, but I had 19 of the 24 colors that I sent to her to add to these socks. But I decided just to do one repeat of those 19 colors, and then I decided not to continue with the striping, probably mainly because of laziness, and I was feeling a bit overwhelmed by having to sew in all of these ends for all of these different stripes. So I just decided to stop the striping, and I'm going to be knitting the rest of the sock in just the Midnight Heather color. But I absolutely love so much how this has worked up. Isn't it amazing? I just love this pattern so much. It starts off at the cuff, obviously, and I cast on 64 stitches, a 1x1 twisted ribbing for, I don't know, like 15 rounds maybe. And then it's just a super simple pattern, very, very easy to follow throughout the leg. It's so beautiful, isn't it? I just love it so much. I'm using, well, I did use US 1 2.25 millimeter needles for this section because there are slip stitches in this section, and so that really tightens up the gauge quite a bit, and I didn't want them to be too tight. But once I stopped doing that patterning in the leg, I went down to a US 0 2 millimeter needle. All of the needles that I use are Chowgu red lace, by the way. And for the leg, I am continuing the purl rows. There are purl rows throughout this regular pattern, and I'm continuing to do those, as you can see here, in the main color, just because I thought that would really tie it all together and be a fun texture to add throughout the sock. I have just started the heel flap, the slip stitch heel flap. I've only done 2 rows of it, I think. So just started the heel flap. You can't even see it really yet, but here is another beautiful stitch marker, also from Emma, that is marking where I was last time I showed these off. So I haven't done a ton of work on these, but they're the only socks I now have on my needles. At one point I had 4 different socks in the making, and now I'm down to 1 pair, so that's more comfortable for me. And I'll try to stay focused on these, and I'm excited to see these work up a little bit more. So I'm really enjoying those. Okay, my last work in progress is a project that I really was beginning to doubt if I would ever get back to it or not. It is being held in this beautiful bag by Tanny Casey, and it is the Ellie Cardigan, a beautiful design by Adelheid. And I started, another rollaway ball, I started this project, I think back in August. Let me look, I have it in my notebook here. I started it, yes, in August originally of last year. And it was turning out too big for me. So I ripped it back completely and started over in October. Yes. But then I put it aside because I was getting confused with the lace patterning throughout the pattern. And I don't know, I was off a little bit on my stitch count, and I was just getting frustrated with it. So I put it aside and hadn't worked on it for a long time. But then I went over to my friend Michelle's house, who lives nearby. I mentioned her in the last episode, no, 2 episodes ago, because she was one of the winners of the final prizes for the Make 9 2021 MAL. And I went over to her house to deliver her prize to her, and she had given me a few tips on how to work out this pattern previously, and I asked if she would be willing to help me look at the pattern and try to figure out where it had gone wrong and so forth. So I sat down with her, and she looked over the pattern with me and helped me get a better idea of it. So I'm so thankful for her help, and I've been working on it every day since then, and I've made a bit of progress. So I'm so excited about that. I was in the middle of the short row shaping when I met with her, and I've gotten through that now and am just working through the raglan increases at this point. So this is a top-down sweater, and it is knit in fingering weight yarn. I'm using the same yarn that I'm using for my turtleneck sweater, but I'm just holding it singly instead of doubling it up. So again, it's just a bare 100% non-superwash fine merino wool. And here is my progress. So let's see. It starts off with a 1x1 twisted ribbing. And here is a beautiful progress keeper from Tracy of Grizzly Knits that she gifted me. Little sweet bunny, Peter Cottontail. with some beautiful stones. That's marking where I was last time I showed this off, but I can't remember how long ago that was. It was several weeks ago, months ago. Anyway, so I have added, quite a few inches to it since I've been working on it this last week or so. And I am adding beading to this pattern, which is different from what the pattern calls for. I don't know if you'll be able to see them very well. There you go. I'm adding beading throughout the lace work, which I'm so excited about. I think it's beautiful. Now my stitch count is still off. I'm pretty sure, again, I'm always a little hesitant, but I'm pretty sure that the stitch count that she gives you after you finish the short row shaping is incorrect, because my stitches are way off of where I should be, but it fits me well. And so I'm just continuing with the raglan increases, and I keep trying it on, and it's fitting well. I'm so happy with it. I went down to the smallest size because, like I said, when I first started it, it was too large. So I'm making the smallest size now. The needles I'm using are US 2.75 for the ribbing. And then for my knit stitches, I'm using a 3.25 millimeter needle. And on the purl side, so I have interchangeable needles here. And on the purl side, I'm using a US 2.53 millimeter needle, again, because my purl stitches are looser than my knit stitches. But I'm really happy with the evenness of my stitches. I don't feel like I'm rowing out at all. I don't think so. Maybe a little bit, but it's not bad. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. Anyway, I am really enjoying it. So this has a plain stockinette back, but then the sleeves and the front have lace work on them. The lace goes all the way down the sleeves, and then it kind of comes to a point, like a V point like this on the front pieces. So it's working out really well, and I've just been adding at least 2 rows to this every day so that I can continue to see progress on it. But it's a very, it's a pattern that I really need to pay attention to because it's lace work and I'm still doing increases and I'm adding in the beading, but it's really so much fun and it's manageable just to add in a couple of rows every day. So I'm loving it. I'm so happy. I'm so thrilled that I've been able to get back to this because I really, really want the finished object. And I was so discouraged because I was having so much trouble figuring it out, but now I have a handle on it thanks to you, Michelle. So thank you again. I just appreciate you helping me out with this pattern so much. So those are all of my projects that I have to share with you all. I do have a few gifts that I have been given recently that I wanted to share with you all as well. I never did show off the final skein of yarn that Emma sent to me in our Advent swap, and I wanted to show that because it's so beautiful, isn't it? This is from Life in the Long Grass Dye Studio, hand dyed in Ireland, and it is a fine sock base, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, and it's in the colorway Crush. Isn't it gorgeous? I think it's so beautiful. I love it. And then when I went over to Michelle's house, she gifted me this beautiful bag with these sweet little birds on it. Isn't that adorable? This is from I Heart You. You as in the female sheep. There's a tag that you can see better. And she also gifted me some yarn. This beautiful mini set. Oh, by the way, the interior fabric is also a pretty metallic polka dot. Such a perfect little sack or sock-sized bag, isn't it? She gifted me this gorgeous set of minis from Molly Klein Design in the Songbird Eggs Sweet Tea Yarns mini skein set. They are 20 grams, 90 yards each, and each colorway is dyed to reflect the color of a different bird's egg, I guess. So we have crow, goldfinch, cardinal, robin, oriole, and swallow. Aren't they beautiful? I don't know what I'll do with them yet, but they're so gorgeous. I just love them so much. And she gifted me this gorgeous skein or hank of yarn from Fleece and Harmony. It is 100% wool, and let's see, it's flock fingering in the Twilight colorway, 380 yards. Oh, it's so beautiful, isn't it? I just love the colors. So gorgeous. Thank you again, Michelle. This was such a surprise. I was so grateful for these beautiful goodies. And then I just received a package in the mail from another viewer of the podcast, another winner of one of the prizes from the Make 9 2021 Mal. And Jilly Addie sent me this beautiful skein of yarn or hank of yarn from her. She's from Yorkshire in the UK. And this is also from West Yorkshire Spinners. It is 100% British wool, blue-faced Leicester. It's a DK weight. And does it have a color? I don't know. Maybe Bramble? Bramble Run? I don't know. Not sure. Maybe Bramble Run is the colorway, but it's beautiful, isn't it? That was so sweet of you, Jilly. Thank you so much for gifting me this. And she also gifted me some goodies, some tea and goodies. So that was so sweet, and also from her local area. So that was so nice. Thank you so much, Jilly. And I just wanted to show this. You all know that I love purple, because look at there. It'd be fun to use all of these together almost, wouldn't it? But the middle one is a DK weight. I could hold the fingering weight double. That might be an option. I don't know. We'll see. I really don't know what I'll use for any of these yet, but they're so pretty. So thank you so much to you all. I truly appreciate you gifting me those things. So thank you very much. It is now a few days later. Today is Thursday, January 27th. And there was one more thing I wanted to add on to this video before I published it. And that is a tag that I received from Anna of Anna Knitters. She came up with a few questions that she put out on a video that she published a few weeks ago, and she tagged me on those questions. And so I am going to go over those questions now. The first one is, show us your favorite Christmas present. Well, I think that my favorite Christmas present is the swap that I did with Emma of Potter and Bloom. So I'm not going to go over everything that she gave me, but you have seen several of the things that she gifted me, and I will continue to show you the other things that she gifted to me as I use them. But so she just gifted me so many things that were just so thoughtful, and she went way above and beyond what we had originally just said that we were going to be swapping. And I was just blown away by her generosity and her thoughtfulness. So that was really my most favorite present. Number 2, new ideas or resolutions for 2022 regarding podcast, Ravelry, or Instagram. I don't have any resolutions for this podcast that I can think of offhand. I don't really use Ravelry, and I would like to post more often on Instagram, but I don't like to put pressure on myself for that. I will try to post as often as I can, but it's not something that I'm going to put, make a stressful thing for myself. So some days I'm just really too busy to put a picture up on Instagram. So I will try to do that more often, but I'm not putting any pressure on myself. Number 3, what have you done in 2021 you have never done before? I crocheted a blanket using the corner to corner method for the first time in 2021, and that was really I really enjoyed that process of making that blanket. I will put a picture in here showing that blanket that I made last year. It was a baby blanket, and I already gifted that to my husband's boss and his wife when they had a baby last year. Number 4, did you have a resolution for 2021, and how did you do? Well, I just had my Make 9 boards that I wanted to complete for 2021, and I completed 15 of those 18 projects. So I will put in pictures of those 2 boards here so that you can see what I did make. So the 3 projects that you can see on here that I did not finish were a sweater for my daughter, and on my own personal board there was a pair of mittens, and then the Ellie cardigan, which I am working on now. Number 5, your biggest achievement of the year. As far as my making, I would say my biggest achievement is completing my Hexy Scrappy Afghan, which is right here behind me, but I'll put a better picture in of it here as well. I was, this was such a long-term project, but I was really very, very happy to be able to get that completed this year. And then along with that, I also won this blue ribbon when I entered the Afghan in my county fair. So I got first place, best in county. So that was just such a wonderful surprise, and I'm so proud that I was able to win a blue ribbon. I have it hung on my mirror on my dresser right beside me here. I'm gonna clump number 6 and 7 together because I have the same answer for both of them. So number 6 is tell us a valuable life lesson of 2021. Number 7, if you had one word that represents last year, what would it be? And I just picked the word consistency, and I think that that was a valuable lesson that I learned in 2021. As far as my making is concerned, taking care of myself health-wise and homeschooling, I think the word that I could just think of for last year was consistency. So I didn't really do anything that was extraordinary or out of the norm, but I just kept on with my routines, and I really like to keep a consistent routine in my life personally, and it's really beneficial with our homeschooling routine as well to keep that as consistent as possible. And I just think that that is where I see the most progress in all areas of my life, is if I continue to be consistent in my routines and just day by day doing what needs to be done, I guess. So number 8, do you want to change a bad habit in 2022? Well, I would like to try to eat more healthy. I probably eat too much sugar, so I probably should not eat sugar as much as I do, but I'm not putting any hard or strict rules on myself, but I would like to try to make a few better choices with my eating habits. Okay, I'm also going to clump number 9, 10, and 12 together because, again, I just have the same answer for all 3 of these. Number 9, is there something you want to achieve in 2022? Do you have resolutions for 2022 is number 10's question, and then number 12 is knitting resolutions. And the only thing I can think of is my Make 9 boards, so sorry I'm not very interesting there, but that's all that I really have for resolutions. I'm not making any major resolutions in my life. Again, just continuing on with what I have been doing. Like I shared on, when was that I shared my Make 9 2022 boards, but I think it was 2 episodes ago. Anyway, I am hoping to make those projects. I don't have huge, I don't have great expectations that I will be able to complete all 18 of those projects that I have on my 2 Make 9 boards, but that's what I would like to do, so we'll see. Okay, back to number 11. Did you start doing something in 2021, a habit that you want to go on with in 2022? So I did. This is probably quite crazy, I suppose, to many people. It's kind of a strange habit that I've started, I suppose, but I have started writing out the Bible. I started this back in probably late summer last year, and I just started in Genesis, and I'm actually writing out the Bible every morning. I just use a regular spiral notebook, and I fill up 1 page every morning, and I'm just working my way through the Bible, and I think I'll probably never make it all the way through, in my lifetime. I don't know, we'll see, but I've kept with it. Every single morning I fill up 1 page in my notebook with the Bible, and I just started Exodus chapter 9 today, so I'm working my way through, and it just has been really helpful for me to go through it so slowly in that way that I've really caught on to a lot of details that I've overlooked before when reading through the Bible. So I've just really enjoyed it. It helps me just to kind of slow down, and it's a quiet time that I have, and I have just really enjoyed it. And it's kind of surprised me that I've enjoyed it as much as I have. But again, I just have been consistent with doing it every morning. And now it's a habit that I really I really do look forward to doing that every morning. It takes me about 15 minutes to just fill up one page in a spiral notebook. And yeah, I've been enjoying it. It's been really beneficial. So I'm definitely going to continue doing that. And the last question is, what is your most worn handmade item in 2021? And that's definitely my socks. I think that was Anna's question, or answer to this question as well, is her handmade socks are her most worn item. And that's definitely mine as well. I don't wear socks very often in the summertime, but as soon as it cools off and all through the winter and into the spring, I wear my handmade socks every single day. So that's definitely my most worn object, and so I'm going to just continue to make them, of course. So for this tag, I am passing on the tag to Carla of the Carla Knits podcast, and she has already agreed to go ahead and answer these questions on her next podcast as well. So I'm super excited to pass those questions along to her and hear what she has to share. I hope that you enjoyed hearing my answers. And that is all that I have for this episode today. I hope that you really enjoyed watching. Thank you so much for joining me. If you did enjoy this episode, I would appreciate you giving me a thumbs up and subscribing to this channel if you haven't already. I hope you all are doing really well. Take care. Bye-bye.